Okay, so I've been playing Zenless Zone Zero since launch, and as a fan of the game, I've watched my fair share of creator content. And over these many months, my perception has been that the core ZZZ YouTube creator community tends to be people who typically have a history with gacha games, and definitely lean more towards the meta mindset. You know, not completely whales, but definitely more concerned about what's best in slot and what characters have the most long-term value. I, personally, don't come from that background. I have a much more of a, hey, is this fun perspective. So, as a result of that disconnect, I've been building up my own little pile of differing opinions. And as that pile has grown, I've ended up with this rant just brewing in my head, and it's officially gotten to the point where it's keeping me from getting other work done. I really need to get these thoughts out of my head. So, I guess I'm making a YouTube video now? I love Zenless Zone Zero, or how I enjoy playing every day and tolerate the gacha. Full disclosure, I have logged in to play Zenless Zone Zero every single day since launch. This is not going to be an unbiased review. It will, in fact, be extremely biased. So what I'm trying to do here is less of a review and more me just trying to share my own perspective. With any luck, this will include some new or interesting viewpoints that haven't appeared elsewhere. Before I start gushing about Zenless Zone Zero, let me try and quickly set up some background prior to ZZZ's launch. I am not a fan of mobile or free-to-play style monetization, and I wasn't playing any other gacha games. I had played Genshin Impact for a few weeks, shortly after it launched, but I didn't stick with it. I completely skipped Honkai Star Rail. I just didn't think JRPG mechanics and gacha would be a good mix, and so I never even gave it a chance. I tried Nikkei once, because I just couldn't help myself. I know what they were marketing. I was just generally curious what else it had going on. I did enjoy what I played. There were some really cool arcade boss fights in that game, but I hit the usual mobile game energy wall shenanigans after only a day or two. I couldn't progress the story anymore, and that was enough to drive me off. I start with this just to set a baseline that, prior to Zenless Zone Zero, I had no stake in gacha games, and that I was generally not a fan of the business model. I also had no prior attachment to Hoyoverse, other than that I was familiar with their previous two games, and I considered them well-built quality games. But still, I had decided they weren't for me. Which of course sets up the first question: why did I check out Zenless Zone Zero at all? Marketing. Sweet, sweet marketing. To be more exact, the game looked funny as hell. Silly, over-animated characters, fun character designs, and the urban setting was really uncommon among other anime-style games. I knew practically nothing about the gameplay. Pretty much the only reason I booted it up was because I thought it would make me laugh. And if I was to use that metric alone, I believe it's been a huge success. I mean, this is just a tiny taste of what was there at launch.
Go left!
Over there! Go! Go!
You wanna go underneath? Meow! That sound is unbearable!
Watch out!
One signal indicates some activity, 2, significant activity, 3 is an intense reading, and 4...
What's going on?
No way! That's impossible!
What's that sound?
Wait...
General Chop, another bolt, please!
Coming up!
Slow down. No one's fighting for it.
Don't come any closer! This area is me and my lover!
Why can I hear a girl's voice? Up there!
So it's you! The bad guys who tried to break up me and Mr. White!
Oh, it's only been a couple of days, and yet our child has become a fabulous young lady.
Now, follow my instructions.
But what about the enemy?
Leave it to me. Now, go!
They're getting away!
What now?
Straight ahead. Jump into the fissure.
The fissure!
What? A spatial fissure! After them! There they are!
They're chasing us!
There's another fissure straight ahead.
They're closing in. They'll catch us at this rate.
I have a plan. It might be risky, but I'm sure you can do it.
We did it.
Anby, what you felt. That was the ethereals, right?
Not sure. Was it?
So, manager, where should we go from here? Hang on, let me check. Nakamura!
Yeah, officers. I thought that was gonna take my nose
Are
off.
those scissors?
Who's there?
And it didn't stop there either. Every single update since, typically every 6 weeks, has continued to deliver on that initial promise of a silly, funny cartoon.
You brat. What are you doing?
I can't stand dishonesty. I've heard enough and I've taken enough. You demand loyalty, but will sacrifice your companions on a whim for your own greed. Jane, do you get it now? The filthy nature of these gangsters. If you would have just agreed to my terms, we could have avoided all this nonsense.
I agreed
But you're
to your
just so
terms.
obsessed with... hang on. What did you say?
I agree to your terms. Turning over a new leaf, changing for the better. Okay, I agree.
Huh?
Perfect. We're the first to get here.
I was thinking, since we have the upper hand, we might as well call it a day. But seeing you like this really brings out my predatory instincts.
So soft. So warm.
I thought we agreed.
Morse?
You were supposed to come alone.
What are you talking about? Hand over the goods like you promised.
If you want the goods, you're gonna have to pay up. Or... I'll just take it from the Sons of Caledon.
Wait, what?
Chief Miyabi, now!
There's no hiding instinct. You know how to leave this virtual space. Talk.
You're never leaving.
We're back in the HIA room again.
Whew, I'm exhausted.
Nagi, you did it!
That's the deputy chief for you. We've changed our route so many times, but they're still hot on our heels. Oh my God! Let's go!
Focus on the road. Yep. I'll deal with them.
Whoa! Dude, you're trying way too hard!
Long time no see, traitor.
So if any of that interests you, and for some reason you haven't given it a chance yet, I cannot recommend ZZZ enough. It has been and continues to be a delight. I'll talk about the gameplay here in a bit, but I simply have to give the humor and animation the upfront attention it deserves. It's what got me in the door, and I have not been disappointed. There's a certain kind of gamer that just wants the core gameplay, and wants to skip all of this silly stuff at the front, and that's not me. To me, Playing ZZZ just to get to the endgame content, skipping all of the story, skipping events, and heaven forbid, maybe even skipping the animations. Doing that is like buying a movie ticket because you really like popcorn. I do think you're going to get what you want, but I believe you're missing out on a lot of really good stuff if you just walk out. So all of that silly fun has to take place someplace, so next I'm going to talk about the story. I've seen a lot of divided opinions on Zenless Zone Zero's story, good, bad, fine, whatever. The cheeky response I'd give to anyone who has such a broad opinion is, wait, which story are you talking about? Because you see, ZZZ doesn't really have a grand narrative or a hero's journey. The story itself is broken up into a series of alternating intermissions and main story chapters, and each of those sections is mostly independent of each other. There is a darker, dramatic, sinister conspiracy thread that, connects most of these sections together, but that thread stays in the background the majority of the time. What's in the foreground are faction stories. With only a couple of exceptions right at the start, each chapter is a faction-focused story. Your protagonist, one of a brother-sister pair you choose between at the start, assumes a supporting role in those stories, while also serving as your point-of-view character for the events that take place during them. But the stories themselves are faction stories. Now, I don't want to undersell the protagonists, Belle and Wise. They still contribute significantly to the stories being told, and also, in another nice touch, whichever sibling you don't choose remains a part of the story, since the two of them work together. Each of them has their own unique personality, and those personalities get conveyed across their individual dialogue lines, and with unique animations and related cutscenes, which is another really nice touch. So it's the characters of the factions that end up being the real stars of ZZZ stories. And I think that seems especially well suited to a gacha game, where the characters are the product being sold. Rather than all these characters just ending up as companions, cameoing in someone else's story, all of the characters in ZZZ get to take center stage. I like this design a lot, so in that respect, I am a big fan of ZZZ's story. And it's worth mentioning that when those individual stories complete, rather than being abandoned to your character list, all of the characters effectively become NPCs in the city of New Eridu, where the game takes place. The characters you unlock continue to appear as a normal part of the city, and existing characters can also make appearances during other faction stories, and across the limited time events that are added during each patch. Now, of course, as the game continues to grow, there will be more competition to feature every character. Yet still, with how it's been handled so far, I'm optimistic that the Zenless Zone Zero team will continue to make good use of existing characters, which I think is a really nice and possibly uncommon thing to do in a gacha game. That is to say, that older characters aren't being completely abandoned despite new characters always having the spotlight. Now, if you can't tell yet, I'm really just hitting highlights and adding some commentary. I'm skipping over all of the basics and most of the details. I call that out now because I'm done talking about the story. It's time to start talking about the actual gameplay, and I'm going to continue to skip a fair amount of the basics. This video is not going to contain any sections about how to play. Anyway, I would describe the gameplay in Zenless Zone Zero as being split into 3 different styles. You've got the free-roaming part in the city, which I'm just going to lump the story under. You've got combat, and then there's also an other component, which is where I'll put the limited time events and the non-story side missions together. And out of those 3, clearly the most important to talk about is combat. Combat is the meat of Zenless Zone Zero's gameplay, and, if you end up enjoying the endgame, the core that'll keep you logging in. As someone it's clearly gotten its hooks into, what do I think makes it any good? A broad term I would use to describe why ZZZ's combat is so fun is control. You have a lot of control over every second of ZZZ's combat. As someone with attention deficit disorder, this is catnip to me. There is nothing I love more than press a button, make a thing happen. Actions in ZZZ are fast. Attacks, dodges, specials, swaps, everything triggers just shy of immediately. The actions that do have longer animations, almost all of them can be interrupted by a dodge, a swap, an ultimate, and for some characters, maybe even their special. Some characters do have longer, flashier attack animations, combo finishers if you will, where you lose control of them, for example a flying backflip attack. But when this happens, generally 2 things are true. That character will be invulnerable during the animation, and you can just swap to another character during it, now having 2 characters attacking at the same time. Because of all this, the game pretty much never expects you to wait. Yes, you can't nail a dodge if you're attacking at the same time, but the window where that's true, where your dodge gets ignored, is measured in milliseconds. It's definitely not the full length of an attack animation. The dodge also has a very short cooldown. Even if you screw up and dodge too early, it's likely that you can still dodge successfully by just dodging again. There is a sort of penalty cooldown when you spam it twice in a row like this, but even that cooldown is only a second long. Some enemies also have telegraphed attacks that flash a warning. When that happens, you can trigger what are called assists, which interrupt the enemy's attack. And those have a really pleasing combination of sound, visual effects, and character animations that make them always feel great to trigger. The window for hitting those assists is generous. ZZZ does not expect you to have frame-perfect reflexes. This is true for the dodges as well. Pretty much the only thing you ever have to stop and wait on in ZZZ's combat are ultimates, which I suppose does let you enjoy the fantastic animations. To me, that wait is only ever annoying for select few characters. Putting all of that together has created a combat system that is extremely fair and approachable for less experienced players. But it also means that players who fully exploit and master the system can achieve much greater results. Now, ZZZ is a free-to-play gacha game, and you will be forced to use limited daily energy to increase stats in order to clear harder content. But individual skill makes up a very significant portion of combat performance. And you can clear many harder challenges under-leveled. You don't need to max out the stats on any character to clear the hardest content as of patch 1.6. The other thing that I think contributes most to making ZZZ's combat so engaging, so worthy of praise, is character design. And I'm not just talking about how they look. There are no junk filler characters in ZZZ. Every character has their own unique design, their own mechanics, and their own moment-to-moment rhythm. They run at different speeds. They have different combos. They have different combo lengths. They chain attacks at different speeds. They want to do different things when they're on field. They dodge differently. Some can only assist on melee attacks. Some can assist on any attack but only evade it. They briefly slow down time instead. Some trigger additional effects with their specials. Some can trigger a quick swap to the next character in the roster, which is safer than a normal swap. Some can trigger a quick swap to the previous character in the roster. And some may also trigger additional effects with their ultimates. On top of all of that, each character also has one of 5 class roles, but those roles really only describe a single shared mechanic. Even characters in the same role are very different from each other. Every character, regardless of their design and mechanics, has a complete moveset. There may be parts of that moveset that you will almost never use, but the devs have put effort into it all the same. And all of that is true for all of the characters in ZZZ, even the less limited A-rank characters. Coincidentally, if you think ZZZ doesn't have enough A-rank characters compared to other gacha games, I would suggest that everything I just mentioned is the reason why. Every character the devs create seem to receive a fair amount of care and investment. It's very much a quality over quantity situation. And that's just the characters individually. There's also the additional layer of team building. Team building being the art of putting up to 3 of those unique characters together, while still enabling all or most of their perks, and making effective use of them during combat. So you can make poor teams, and you can make great teams. In a poor team, the characters really just take turns, one character on the field at a time. But in a great team, the characters actively interact with each other, layering their attacks and mechanics together, each performing better together than they do individually. I also think it's worth mentioning that as of patch 1.6, it is possible to use any character in the game to clear the hardest content. There's a variety of extremely talented creators you've maybe seen or that you can search for that make it a point to prove that this is still true. I cannot claim to have that level of skill, but the first team I built, and still one of my go-to teams today, is an all A-rank character team: Piper, Corin, and Lucy. I won't say any more than that for now. I actually want to make a second video about team building after this one, but I do want to highlight that you have a lot of freedom to play all of the characters. Now, of course, due to personal skill, stats, modifiers, enemy type, content type, etc., your personal experience may vary. Okay, so what about non-combat gameplay? Also, wait, isn't there an elephant in the room that I haven't mentioned yet? Patience. I'm actually saving that one for later, when I talk about common issues with ZZZ. You won't hear me talk about that one yet, but I will get to it. Anyway, as for all of the other gameplay styles, those being free roaming, limited events, and side missions, up front, I will say that I've enjoyed all of the different gameplay stuff in ZZZ, but I don't have much I'm going to individually highlight right now. Instead, I'm going to talk about a couple of abstract design decisions that the gameplay shares that I'm a fan of. First, I want to call out Zenless Zone Zero's controlled scope. I can't give you an academic reference for that term, it's just the words I've chosen to describe a concept. Hopefully this will all make sense in a couple of minutes. So in a lot of open world games, the play space is huge. At the size and shape of the world is one of the features, and the devs can't just leave large parts of it empty. So a lot of their time gets taken up filling it with distractions. And then also even, maybe more effort has to be spent making sure you keep the player in bounds too. You know, game development involves a lot of cheating to keep the size and quantity of the world from choking your computer. And if you let players look behind the wrong curtain, you'll ruin the magic trick. And those are all good, worthy things to do. Yet when you make a large world like that, the sheer size means that the player spends a lot of their time just moving from place to place. And God help you if the game devs decided you needed a stamina bar. This travel time can get really tedious over time, even with lots of teleport points to get around the problem. In addition, once a player has completed said distractions, be they puzzles or collectibles, you're back at the original problem. Now there's just a bunch of empty, unused space in this big open world. Now, in a standalone title, who cares? You know, the game has to end somewhere. But when you're running a live service title, ZZZ is not an open world game. It does have a persistent world, though. ZZZ is not just a UI and a mission selector. You will feel like you live play in a larger world, but that world is really just a number of independent maps. The city maps are small but persistent, and packed with unique locations, custom details, NPCs, and even a few collectibles. Meanwhile, the combat maps are made from a lot of reusable assets. They may just be a single arena, or they could be a larger chained-together series of arenas. On longer, what ZZZ calls rally mode missions, they also probably have some collectibles tucked in the odd corner for you to discover, and some other mechanics. And then there's the limited time events and side missions, and those often have their own custom UI. So what does any of what I just said have to do with controlled scope? I say Zenless Zone Zero has controlled scope because nothing in ZZZ is bigger than it needs to be. To word it another way, almost every activity in Zenless Zone Zero is both accessible and digestible. There is virtually no travel time in ZZZ. Everywhere is close by and you can teleport to just about every place worth visiting. It doesn't take a lot of time to complete or consume most activities. They can be completed in minutes, if not seconds. The longest activities in Zenless Zone Zero are in Hollow Zero, which are a variety of roguelike modes that can take 10 to 30 minutes to complete. But after that, combat is broken into individual combat missions, and each only take like 2 to 5 minutes. And many things take even less. By controlling the scope of the game, both the size of the world as well as the duration of individual activities, the ZZZ devs have been able to devote more dev time to the moment-to-moment details that matter more. Like the story, the characters, NPCs, new content, combat, and custom mechanics. And at the same time, as kind of a bonus effect, they also end up greatly respecting the player's time. The second design decision I'm making up, I'm calling a la carte. I've got no clue what the French means, but what I mean is that at some point after you start playing Zenless Zone Zero, your gameplay options effectively become a buffet. There are a variety of activities that you can challenge and complete in almost any order you want, almost whenever you want. As of writing this, we're halfway through 1.6, just about to start Trigger's banner. When I, after having played more than 270 days straight, log in tomorrow, here's a list of still incomplete activities that I could choose to do. I could pick new objectives to clear from the newest Lost Void update. I could attempt the 12 modifier challenge of the new Lost Void difficulty. I could finish A-ranking Shiyu defense. I still need to S-rank around 6 and 7. I could start a quality time event with one of my companions. I could try to clear another floor in the original Battle Tower. I could try and clear more floors in the new Battle Tower. I could look up and complete some random mission achievement from the extensive achievements list. I could run Withering Garden in order to find one of the 3 remaining Rizonia I need to finally 100% that mode. Or I could complete an achievement for one of the arcade minigames. I deliberately left my dailies out of that list, as well as any new limited time events. And remember, that's not including anything I've already completed. If I added additional things that someone new, or who plays less than me, might have to do, I might add: complete 1 or more combat missions, complete 1 or more exploration missions, complete 1 or more hard mode versions of one of the story missions, find all the loot boxes in a city zone, complete some tasks for Officer Mew Mew, do one of my 3 free weekly Notorious Hunt runs, at least 6-star Deadly Assault for all of the Polychrome, 9-star Deadly Assault for the challenge. Complete one or more objectives from any of the other Hollow Zero modes. Complete a higher rank of the difficulty modifier challenges from one of the other Hollow Zero modes. Text one of my newer characters to schedule an invite event. Talk to one of my characters out in the city for a trust event. Collect some missing stars for the fishing minigame. Read any new notifications on my Internet. Complete one of the 5 older events that are logged in the Redo Chronicle in case you missed them, or collect commemorative coins to turn into the trash can NPC. Let me be clear, I'm not even trying to talk about the quantity of content yet. I'll get to that in the next section when I talk about rewards. All I'm trying to highlight here is that there is a wide variety of activities that you can tackle at almost any time in almost any order. A la carte. So for this little section, talking about dev design decisions, I mostly just wanted to try and answer a single question. Why have I, who generally ignore collectathons and achievements in other games, completed so much of ZZZ's content? And I think I've boiled those reasons down to: I don't have to invest much time to complete them. There's always a variety for me to choose from, and I can pretty much do them whenever I want. Now, actually focusing on the quantity of content, I want to talk about rewards. As a free-to-play game, I think Zenless Zone Zero is pretty generous with its rewards. The best way I can describe this, for a gacha game, is this. I have never once felt pressured to buy monochrome, the whale currency. In fact, to this day, if I look at the related store page, it almost makes me laugh. The dollar to pull ratio is incredibly bad. If you are a whale that plays Zenless Zone Zero, thank you for your service? You are generously donating money to pay for my entertainment. But I have never been remotely tempted to buy a monochrome. And the huge primary reason for that, prices aside, is that the devs give you so much polychrome, the currency you turn into pulls, just for playing the game. I've been playing since launch, so I feel this is fairly accurate to say. I think that as a low-spend, daily player, you can expect to get 10 to 20 pulls every week. And I believe that range skews heavily towards 20, maybe even 20 plus, though it does change week to week due to how limited time events are scheduled. I have been able to pull one or more limited banner characters every patch, and occasionally an odd weapon. That said, I think I have been pretty lucky, so your personal experience may vary. So the source of all those free pulls is that there's a ton of sub-objectives in Zenless Zone Zero, and they reward you for almost all of them. Most of them are smaller rewards, many may be as little as 5 or 10 polychrome, but sheer quantity makes that add up. Remember when I just talked about all those a la carte activities? Well, each of those activities is broken into sub-objectives, or ranks, and you get rewarded for completing each of them. There are normal achievements for most activities and milestones, and those reward you for completing them. Many missions and modes also have additional special achievements that reward you for completing harder or unique challenges within those modes. In the roguelike Hollow Zero modes, there are literally pages of sub-objectives, effectively awarding you for seeing or collecting all of the various random events and power-ups that can appear in the mode. There's a completely separate sub-objective in those modes that rewards you based on the percentage of the other objectives you complete, giving you additional rewards as you progress towards 100% clear. There's another separate Hollow Zero rank you level up, one for Withering Garden and one for the newer Lost Void, each rank giving you rewards. And then there's the limited time events. ZZZ has frequent multi-day events, each day unlocking a new step, and each of those steps has rewards. Completing the whole event has an additional reward. And the devs generally try to space out the events, so there's almost always a new event step every day of the 6-week patch. Then there's also the dailies. Well, most of the dailies just reward you with leveling resources. You can get some bonus polychrome from the daily scratch card, and there's a daily checkoff list with rewards you get when you've completed enough daily tasks, which is trivial to complete. There's also a number of once-per-week activities. On Monday, there's a do stuff around the city tic-tac-toe grid, which gives you rewards as you complete rows and columns. There's a once-per-week set of additional rewards just for completing a Hollow Zero mode run. On Fridays, alternating weeks, one of the endgame challenge modes, Shiyu Defense or Deadly Assault, will reset. Each of those modes is broken into multiple stages and has multiple ranks. You are rewarded for each individual stage/rank you complete. And being the most challenging modes, those rewards also give you much more polychrome than anything else. But wait, there's still more! At the first of every month, there's a currency store related to Hollow Zero, and the resources you can buy with it, including some pulls, resets. And anytime you pull, you also gain additional currency related to the number of B-rank weapons or duplicate characters that you pull. There are a variety of good things you can purchase with these currencies, such as additional copies of A-rank characters or additional pulls. These better purchases are limited, but those limits reset each month. Listing all of that was probably a bit much, but hopefully it also makes it clear why I personally believe that the ZZZ devs are pretty generous, and that you can comfortably enjoy this game without ever opening your wallet. The devs' approach seems to be, did you see all the things we made for you? Great! Here's prizes. Thanks for playing. And I can really get behind that. They don't just hand out rewards for free, but they're there for playing the game and playing all of the game. Let's take a moment and reflect on how I've twice now rattled off a long list of things, activities and rewards. So, maybe it's worth talking about a potential negative side to all of that content. I'm not bumping this to the pending issues section, because I'm about to explain why it doesn't really bother me, but still, I understand that your schedule is not my schedule, and your opinion may be different from mine. Outside of progressing through the main story, I do not want to imagine trying to play ZZZ only like twice a week or only on the weekends. And the reason I say that is that the size of the to-do list, if I wanted to complete most activities, challenges, and all the limited events, that list would exhaust me. My advice, take your time with Zenless Zone Zero. Maybe do try to play it daily, but only complete a couple of activities and then stop. Here's an analogy. I think ZZZ's content is kind of like a massive bowl full of Halloween candy. You've got your favorites, you've got your less favorites, it's all sugar, it's all tasty. But if you try and eat too much of it at once and it makes you sick, that's not really the candy's fault, right? It's not the bowl's fault. The devs are okay with you putting things off. The steps to the limited time events unlock daily, but those steps stay active for weeks. The endgame challenges reset, but they do give you 2 whole weeks to clear as much as you can. Nothing else in the game expires outside of the limited time events, so pretty much everything new just gets added to the heap of existing content. So it's okay to walk away and finish something up tomorrow or the next day. But you do probably want to nibble at it, if you want to keep that bowl of content from overflowing. I haven't skipped a day of playing the game since launch, and what keeps me coming back is not fear of missing out. What keeps me coming back is that I find all of the different activities fun to play and rewarding. So make the dailies work for you. Do not use them as an excuse to log in. Use them as an excuse to stop, and come back tomorrow. Make them work for you instead of the other way around. Okay, the last highlight I'm going to hit before I start talking about the game's issues is to give a shout out to ZZZ's music. Now, there's not too much I can say here. Music's not something I'm any good at explaining why I like what I do, but that said, it would be a crime if I didn't highlight ZZZ's soundtrack. I really love it. There's a lot of variety and a lot of good stuff. I'll add a link in the description to the Sanzi playlist if you somehow haven't heard any of it, but here's a quick shout out to a couple of my favorite tracks. Alright, that was a fair number of highlights, but of course the game has issues too, right? Every game does. So let's talk about what I think are the common ones I've heard. Now remember, I am clearly a ZZZ fanboy. There will be a lot of counterpoint from me. But still, all the same, let's start talking about some issues. Difficulty! You may have heard that Zenless Zone Zero is very, very easy. That you can just mash the attack button and still progress through the story. Are those rumors true? For the most part, in the spirit of the criticism, I would say that the answer is yes. It is completely true that most of the game's content, particularly early content, is very easy. The enemies, and by extension the devs, are not trying to kill you. That's just the truth. You may hate the term, but early content, and for the most part all of the story content in ZZZ, is a safe space for you to learn how to play the game, as well as letting you try out that story's characters. You see, during all of the story missions, the devs will give you trial mode versions of the characters. These characters have fixed stats, and they are also completely separate from the characters on your own account. This trial mode is the devs giving you a chance to test drive each faction's characters as you play through their specific story. It is a showcase for the characters. And that's a good thing, right? I do not think that it's relevant that the devs aren't trying to kill you during your test drive. Now, it's petty of me, but I tend to think that the people whining the most about Zenless Zone Zero not being hard at the start are people that really just want a filter. That maybe what matters most to them is that the game's difficulty is high enough to prevent other people from progressing. They want to be special. I imagine that they're just selfish bastards. So, because I think this is a bad faith complaint, here's some more counterpoints. The mash the attack button argument is really stupid. This is because no one would actually do that. It simply wouldn't be any fun. The fun of ZZZ's combat is engaging with and mastering its systems, not pressing a single button. Another point, there are a couple of additional problems with having high difficulty while the player is using trial mode versions of the characters. One, those trial mode characters have fixed stats. For a less skilled player, if combat was harder, they might struggle to progress the story, and there's not much they could do about that since they can't level up or change their gear. 2, the teams you use during trial mode are a faction showcase. While there are many pairs of faction characters that work well together, there aren't a lot of full 3-character teams that you can make from a single faction that perform really well together. So adding a lot of extra difficulty here in the story, where the player is often using a suboptimal team, one that they cannot customize, seems like a bad idea to me. And a final point, to make an even more complicated argument on why I think early difficulty doesn't really matter, I would argue that the first level of difficulty in Zenless Zone Zero, the difficulty that is present every time you pick up the controller, is execution. Trying to get as much performance out of a given team, regardless of the enemy, is its own challenge. In terms of gameplay, one could say that the enemies in ZZZ could be boiled down to just being objectives and randomizers. That is to say, that you have to kill them all, and the primary purpose of an enemy's attacks is just to keep you on your toes, to keep a fight from feeling scripted. The real challenge of the game is min-maxing your team's performance while dealing with those two hurdles. The majority of the time, with the exception of ZZZ's hardest challenges, the damage that enemies do to you is pretty much irrelevant. What matters the most is if they hit you at all. Pretty much every hit you take staggers you. It is a slap to the back of your head. It screws with your execution. More specifically, it breaks your combos and it costs you time. When I'm clearing Shiyu defense and I miss S rank by 30 seconds, the reasons why I failed might be because I poorly grouped the mobs at the start, because I missed too many assists, because I missed too many dodges, because I pop my ultimates at bad times, because I'm not making good use of my drive disc bonuses, or because I'm running a weaker team. What I can pretty much guarantee though is that it won't be because the enemy hit me too hard. So no, I don't think the early difficulty is really a problem. In fact, I don't think enemies hitting hard is really relevant at all, outside of the survival challenge fights. Now, back to the original issue, does the game get harder? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right around Chapter 3, the Ballerina Twins boss fight. That fight can wreck your face. You're not gonna just attack spam your way through that one. If you don't try and dodge their attacks, they can kill you. If you attack them at the wrong time, they'll just punish you. It's not super hard, the story fights are always very generous. You can still make plenty of mistakes, but you do need to react to the boss's moveset to defeat them. If you are looking for a challenge, yes, once you make it out of the story, there are a variety of activities that continue to scale up the difficulty. However, really hard fights, challenges for the sweatiest of players, are very much an endgame only thing. If you are a difficulty fiend, the best advice I can give you is this. Level up your characters as little as possible. I can't remember if this is a fact or not, but I'm pretty sure that the character level is actually part of ZZZ's damage calculation. That means that if you are underleveled, you will do less damage and take more. For most players, this means you should prioritize character level when strengthening your teams. But, if you want to make the game harder, deliberately not leveling will accomplish your goals. It will also save you a ton of resources. There's an eccentric content creator on the YouTubes, Kets. He does this. If you watch his videos, you may see that his characters have stopped at level 45. He has some long-ass fights, and he's not getting a lot of S ranks and Shiyu defense, but he does seem to be having a pretty good time. Alright, so now that we've been talking about difficulty for a bit, I figure it's time to bust out a few more highlights. Since we were just talking about harder challenges, here's one of my favorites that's directly related to difficulty. ZZZ's combat respects your time. You can pause and reset a fight at pretty much any time, and you'll be back into that same fight in seconds. I have spent anywhere from 30 minutes to multiple hours, spread across multiple days, spread across multiple weeks, trying to clear some of ZZZ's hardest fights. One of the big reasons I've been able to keep smashing my face against that wall was because resetting and trying again was so painless. A long single fight, not talking about a whole Hollow Zero run or both halves of Shiyu defense here, but just one good arena boss fight, a long fight in ZZZ is only like 3 minutes. Speaking of how Hollow Zero runs are a bit longer, you can pause and put the run on hold from any room. Go do a different activity or just quit the game and come back tomorrow. It will be waiting for you to resume it. The ZZZ devs respect your time. You can also reset any individual combat room during a Hollow Zero run. This includes the Do Not Get Hit challenge rooms. It remains true even after the fight ends in a failure because you got hit too many times. In regards to Shiyu defense, when you do reset it, it only resets the current half. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but I've been playing games for a long time. Some devs are jerks. ZZZs aren't. And last but not least, there's a combat mission I want to call out. It's got a really tight timer. None of the individual fights are hard, but in 2 minutes and 30 seconds you need to clear 2 groups of weak mobs, run all the way around a big room to reach the other side, fight a pair of elites, enter a teleporter to warp back to where you started, fight 2 more groups of weak mobs, fight 2 more elites, run halfway around the other side of the big room, and then defeat a mini-boss. Just logistically, pure transit time, that can be a challenging mission to S-rank. The devs added a checkpoint to that level right after the teleporter. If you're just a few seconds short of the S-rank time, you can restart that mission from your time at the halfway point. Let me remind you that this is for a mission that is only 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. They added a checkpoint to it. I love the ZZZ devs. Back onto the topic of difficulty, one of the things that I, very much a non-meta player, who only gets a teeny bit sweaty, think is a very good thing about Zenless Zone Zero is that the difficulty is spread across a very wide spectrum. The story is the easiest, and then you've got the combat missions where you've got to use your own teams, those are a little bit harder. And then there's the Internet rank-up missions that you have to pass to unlock higher account ranks, those are just a teeny bit harder. And then there's the hard mode versions of the story missions. And then there's early Hollow Zero. And then there's Withering Garden, especially when you're first learning the boss, Nineveh's magic missile phase can definitely give you some trouble. After that, arriving with patch 1.1, we got a bunch of more challenging combat missions, and many of those were new survival missions. So when the mission objective is don't die, I think it's fair to say they were a bit harder. As I just mentioned before, a couple of those combat missions had really tight time requirements, so there's a few of those that might take some min-maxing to S-rank. And then there's the challenge modifiers for Withering Garden, and then there's the other Hollow Zero modes that followed, each with their own challenge modifiers, and the endgame modes all have a number of rounds of performance ranks. And while I've just described them here in some semblance of an order, they don't necessarily unlock in that order or in series. So what I call the spectrum is the wide variety of difficulties you can encounter pretty much at the same time. Difficulty in ZZZ is not always a linear series of steps, where each step is always harder than the last, and you have to take the steps one at a time. Sometimes a variety of challenges drop at the same time, and their individual difficulty will vary. The 1.6 update of the Lost Void mode is a great example of this. So why any of that matters, why I enjoy this spectrum of difficulty, is that it lets me play all of the characters. It lets me experiment with teams that may be suboptimal or underleveled, but that also might just be fun to play. I've mentioned it multiple times now, but the game mode where this shines the most is the Hollow Zero modes. Hollow Zero is just a great activity in ZZZ, one that's pleasant to chip away at. And because it has a lower difficulty, you can pretty much run whatever team you want through it. The only price you'll pay for using a weaker team is that it will take longer to clear. For me, running Hollow Zero every day using the same team, or only my best teams, would be very dull. So the fact that I can play pretty much any decently leveled team is fantastic. It lets me keep the mode fresh. And lastly, just because it's been a while since it's been relevant to me, I presume this spectrum of challenges is also good for new players. Once you've unlocked a level, or a mode, you can challenge it as much as you want. There are no limited tries in ZZZ. And ZZZ has no problem letting you use underleveled characters. So when you're starting out fresh, it is going to take a couple of weeks to get your team to high level in order to tackle the hardest content. But during those weeks, there will be a variety of activities you can challenge that are appropriate for your level. And during those weeks, there will be a variety of activities you can challenge that are inappropriate for your level. A victory is a victory even if you walk away with the lowest rank. You can get a C rank on a mission in Zenless Zone Zero. That's what I got the first time I beat Shadow Jane, and I was more than happy to call that a win at the time. Finally, the last thing I want to say about difficulty is to maybe not get blinded by the meta. Don't get too focused on which characters and combos are the best that you forget that you can just enjoy the game. Unless you are a meta player, if that's your jam, you do you. I mention this because if you are not a meta player, but all you see is meta content, it might skew your perspective of where the game's difficulty actually is. Let me put it this way. ZZZ's challenge content has a level of difficulty. I'm going to call it the bar. The bar is the minimum the devs expect from you, the player, in order to get the maximum rewards from the challenge content, Deadly Assault or Shiyu Defense. My opinion, as someone who has S-ranked Shiyu Defense since 1.1, and 9-starred every Deadly Assault to date, is that the bar is very fair. The bar is not free. You've got to do the work of leveling up characters, you've got to put together good teams, you've got to use the game mechanics. But the bar is very achievable. And it seems to be achievable with all of the characters in the game. And it seems to be achievable without ever buying monochrome. So the problem with the meta is just that it's so damn far ahead of where the bar is that it almost describes playing a completely different game. It's just not relevant to most players. It's only relevant to that talented group of niche players that are trying to min-max the game to perfection. And those players, they swim with whales. To put it in an even simpler way, I have never, ever gotten a sub-minute time on any half of Shiyu Defense. But par is 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so who cares? Here, at the bar, we are not good. But we are good enough. Oh no, I guess it's finally time to talk about that elephant. It's time to talk about TV mode. Here are my feelings on TV mode. I really enjoyed the exploration missions. I thought they were creative. I thought they were fun. But what it really did was remind me of being a kid logging into the StarCraft arcade, yes I'm old, and playing things like Marine Madness and RPG Battle. Just all the crazy ideas that people would create with a limited tool set. The devs do a lot of funky stuff like that across the exploration mode missions, and I thought it was great. Lots of people didn't like it, or at least parts of it. It definitely had a lot of time-wasting issues at launch, though that isn't exactly an uncommon issue across games in general. As a game developer, I want to just harp on this for a moment, because it can come from any dev team. That is, the fight between art, design, and gameplay. Artists like to make fancy animations, and they do great work. And designers might want to show a bit of flavor text or a confirmation before certain actions. But what they don't always factor in is frequency. A slick animation or a little pop-up may only take a single second to show. But if gameplay is forced to pause on that, and the player has to wait on that pause 20 times in the same activity every day, all that waiting can practically drain the life out of them. So TV mode launched with a lot of those life-draining problems. Now, to be fair, I think I remember them addressing a number of those after a couple of weeks, and they definitely cleaned up most of it when 1.1 came up, so the majority of those were and have been addressed. Of course, even those issues aside, I think what ended up being the biggest problem with TV mode was that mixing TV mode and combat was probably a bad idea. Having to transition out of TV mode to load into a combat arena, where you only fight like 2 groups of trash mobs, and then load back into TV mode, and doing that multiple times across a mission, it just wasn't good pacing. A lot of the launch story had this, and I ultimately agree with anyone who thought this wasn't good. Couple that with the need to tutorialize all the unique mechanics in TV mode, while also giving the player combat tutorials at the same time, and it's not like there's any overlap between those two gameplay systems. Early missions at launch were effectively trying to teach 2 different games at the same time, and one of those games was going to matter a lot more in the long run, the combat. The TV mode missions themselves I liked, but just in terms of progressing through the story, I have to admit that TV mode does play slower. Again, TV mode has a lot of custom mechanics, and you've got to stop and tutorialize each time something new shows up. So, altogether, I agree with the devs pulling it out of the launch story as part of patch 1.4. I think the game is better for it. Still, I kinda hate the soft reboot claim that popped up around 1.4, because the devs didn't reboot anything. I mean, I replayed some of those levels, and if you've played since launch, you can tell they're kind of bodged together from the existing rally mode levels. Not to undersell them, they're fun, they're fine, but there's a reason they didn't highlight those levels and redirect us existing players to go back and see the new thing they made. And there was also no additional reward for checking out those levels either. And I assume that that is because they didn't really change anything in any significant way that they wanted to call out. They made a serviceable replacement. As to why else there wasn't really a soft reboot, the thing I'd point out is that the devs never really pushed back against the TV mode complaints, and maybe even agreed with you. You see, we didn't get the TV mode in the main story ever again after launch. In 1.1, it wasn't part of the intermission story. In 1.2, it wasn't part of the main story or the side story. In 1.3, it wasn't part of the intermission story or the side story. So this term soft reboot, I think, creates the idea that the game was broken until 1.4. And look, ZZZ was not a Cyberpunk 2077. It was not broken until they fixed it. At 1.4, the devs conceded that, if this is what is stopping a segment of players from playing the game, we'll replace it. And then they replaced it as efficiently as they could. Meanwhile, the rest of us have been playing the game for months and having a great time. So that was it. That, I think, was most of the controversy around TV mode. Now, as I just mentioned, I am a big fan of TV mode gameplay. I enjoyed all of the different gameplay mechanics and puzzles. I think it's great for exploration mode, where the devs can do silly experimental things. As far as I'm concerned, the only really bad TV mode mechanics were an Arpeggio fault. I do think Arpeggio fault is bad. I think I'm just going to throw up some walls of text here to explain why, but the short of it is that there's a couple of design decisions in that mode that breaks what makes TV mode gameplay fun. And as a result, most of the gameplay just ends up being a waste of time. But Arpeggio fault is not bad because of TV mode. It is bad because of other design decisions. Giving TV mode the credit I think it's due, I think that TV mode can be really good for side stories. The example I would use for this is Rena's side story. It makes great use of TV mode, and more importantly, I don't think you could tell it better without TV mode. It's not a combat story, combat is not really relevant to it, so the abstract nature of TV mode makes it better for telling that story. And then also, in terms of character mechanics, the puzzle mode during that side story, where you separately control Rena's 2 Bangbus, Drusilla and Anastella, I really like that mechanic. I like that puzzle. Would it really be worth the development time to try and torture something like that into the combat engine? Nah. But I imagine it was relatively trivial to do in the TV mode. So Rena's side story, to me, is a perfect example of using the TV mode to tell an engaging side story. and also a good example of how it could be used to tell a future side story. Now, despite just propping it up, I do not think we'll see it used for a future character side story. This really doesn't have much to do with TV mode itself, but when talking about side stories, the 1.0 side stories were literal side stories. They appeared alongside the main story chapters, and those main story chapters had already showcased the characters that featured in the 1.0 side stories. Post-launch, the side stories have all been rally mode combat missions instead, and that makes sense. Those combat missions are the showcase for the new character. I believe that attaching TV mode to that would only take away from the showcase time in combat. So I think we'll only see rally-style side stories for now, at least with regards to new characters. So if we get a new TV mode story in the future, I think it'll have to be a true side story, completely separate from any new characters featured on the patch. And we haven't really seen anything like that yet, so maybe there's just no room for it in the current production schedule. You know, to produce pure, non-feature side story content as part of the patch. But I won't leave this section without a little hope for TV mode enjoyers. I guess I'll say spoilers here, but it's such a small thing that I don't really care. When 1.5 dropped, there was a little event that appeared right from the start. Just outside of random play, Seth was standing there waiting for you. When you talked to him, he seemed confused and maybe a little annoyed, and he told you that he had seen you at the docks last night, this taking place right after the end of the 1.4 climax, and that he couldn't figure out why you would be there with everything that had just happened. I can't remember how you respond, but I don't think you tell him much, and then he explains that he asked his boss, which would be Zhu Yuan, and she wouldn't tell him either, and I think she also indicated that this was because of his family connections, which I can only assume is referring to his brother, who we know is a higher-ranking member of the police force. Anyway, that's pretty much it. That's the whole event. Just poor rookie Seth, who knows he's being left out, trying to get anyone to give him a clue. When it appeared, this moment was completely irrelevant to the new content. It wasn't attached to anything that was about to happen, only something that had just wrapped up. This event is just a character moment. One that the devs added only to tell a story. And the devs went out of their way to add this moment for an A-rank character. A character that didn't even really have a part at all in the big story event that just went down. And as far as we know, doesn't have a major part in any story to come in the next few patches. So what that lets me believe is that the devs do want to tell side stories, and maybe they just need to find the time. I think TV mode could be a great way to continue making content that stars the first season characters, without taking away from whatever the devs have planned for us in 2.0. Two more little things. First, there's an argument I've seen floating around that's pro-TV mode, and it's all about how important TV mode is to the immersion of the story, because the TV mode is what your protagonist sees. I don't really buy that. That may be what Second Assistant sees, but your protagonist is running around as Eos. The replacement rally missions are more immersive, if you ask me. And finally, because I can't help myself, if you do just hate TV mode with every fiber of your being, I will say this. At some level, all I really hear when someone complains about it is, "I want less content!" And to that I say, please, just shut the hell up. Moving on to a new issue, gacha mechanics are bad, right? Ugh, I mean, I certainly don't think they're good. And they certainly aren't harmless. But do I think their presence is a good reason to not play Zenless Zone Zero? God, no, of course not. I'm clearly pro playing Zenless Zone Zero, so I definitely wouldn't say that. So let me pick at this nasty gacha problem. Let's start with a question. Can you being some imaginary new player, enjoy Zenless Zone Zero without ever spending money and never pulling, never interacting with the gacha mechanic? Maybe? At the bare minimum, I'm fairly confident that it would be possible. That said, I'm not sure that I would consider it fun. Now, huge caveat here, I sabotaged that question. Attaching that and never pulling bit to the end there has a massive effect on my answer. So instead, I'm going to split that question into two parts. First, can you being some imaginary new player, enjoy Zenless Zone Zero without ever spending money, fully free to play? To that, I will enthusiastically say yes. In fact, I think I can make that answer just a bit sweeter. I am fairly confident that you could do that while also never having the energy or login mechanic ever stop your progress through the game's story. Now, I'm not willing to take the time to prove this myself. I have zero interest in creating a second account. But here's why I'm fairly confident in that statement all the same. ZZZ launched on a Thursday, the 4th of July 2024, leading into a nice long weekend. I played it pretty much the whole 4-day weekend, and as I remember it, I didn't hit an energy wall until right around 32, 34? An energy wall being where I needed to level up my account to access more story, but I was out of other content, so my only option would have been the daily login. I didn't hit that wall until the start of the next week, but oh no, I've just gone and undercut myself, there was an energy wall. But back at launch, that was also right around the end of the launch content. I want to say the story wrapped up around level 36? And that was many patches ago. Every patch since has added more content and more story, meaning a new player won't be reliant on daily energy to level up their account. And I don't think I've seen a rank requirement in any of the patch notes above 40. Also, I'm pretty sure I remember the 1.4 patch notes saying they reduced the rank requirements across the story. Sorry if I'm wrong about that. Anyway, putting all of that together, the new content, the new story, the reduced rank requirements, I'm pretty confident that ZZZ no longer has an energy wall. And if we just reflect on what I've been saying this whole time, fun stories, rewarding gameplay, and a try it before you buy it level of difficulty, I think a new player could have a great time playing through the story. So let's just completely ignore the post-story content. The question only asks if someone could enjoy Zenless Zone Zero, the game, fully free-to-play. I think just playing the story meets that requirement, so yes, God yes, I wholeheartedly believe that you can enjoy Zenless Zone Zero fully free-to-play. Please give this game a shot if any of it interests you. Returning that split question, what if you think Gacha is the great evil, one that cannot be forgiven? Can you being some imaginary new player, enjoy Zenless Zone Zero without ever spending money and never using the gacha? I'm still saying maybe, but now we know which part is the problem. In terms of it being possible, I'm sure it is. The reason I'm waffling here is that from my perspective, it would definitely be less fun than if you use the pile of free pulls the devs are going to give you. As you, our fictional player, play through the story, you will need to run side missions to rank up. You will also need to clear rank up missions in order to unlock higher ranks. Neither of those are major obstacles. But they do mean that you will need to level up some characters and make your own team. If you never pull, you are not going to have a lot of characters to choose from. Offhand, I would say that your best team might be your starting characters, Andy, Billy, and Nicole. They've got all the basics of a team, they will absolutely work. But with regards to that team, I personally don't think that Andy and Billy mesh well together. I still want to make that team building video to follow this one, so I'm not going to explain why that is here. For now, just know that I consider that team less fun. So in addition to that issue of team building, A-rank characters, which are the only ones you are going to have if you never pull, tend to have some of their mechanics and a lot of their strengths locked behind their mindscapes. Mindscapes being the extra buffs the devs give you after you pull additional copies of a character. So while I like playing all the characters, and I've got nothing against Ambi, Billy, or Nicole, I really wouldn't want to be stuck only using the Mindscape 0 B-rank weapon versions of them. That said, I have been spoiled by months of using said Mindscapes and weapons, so maybe it'll be fine for you. But that is why I say maybe it wouldn't be any fun. Following up on that condition, never pulling, ignoring what may be your personal morals and limits, I feel like I need to call that out for what it is. Never pulling while trying to play Zenless Zone Zero is just a form of self-sabotage. I've already talked about how frequently ZZZ rewards you with pulls, and none of that factored in the additional new player pulls that they hand out, so access to the gacha is not part of the problem. If you play ZZZ, you will get plenty of pulls. You would just be refusing to use them. Speaking of pulls, how about I annoy the community by giving non-meta, more casual advice about pulling? My recommendation to a new ZZZ player is to pull on whatever limited banner is active, unless you just don't enjoy playing that specific character. This will give you more options for team building, and give you a leg up when you start to try and clear the harder content. See, experienced gacha players like to gripe about how the devs always market the new characters by skewing mechanics to favor them during the patch where they appear. And this is absolutely true. This is a thing the devs do. Meta players hate it because they're trying to solve what's best, and skewing the mechanics is cheating. But I do think it's also fair to point out that this does also help out new players by giving them set edge. A new player has a very limited roster, so when they pull that new character, those skewed mechanics can help them break into the endgame a little early. So, food for thought. As a new player, you will benefit from taking advantage of said skewed mechanics. Following up on that, specifically for a new player, after you pull the limited banner character, 1 copy, that's all you need, I, personally, would recommend that you then start pulling on the standard banner. I am already imagining pitchforks. The reason I suggest this is because the A-rank characters in Zenless Zone Zero are good. They are fun to play. They are worth getting to expand your roster. Getting additional copies of them is good for both you and them. As a new player, if you only pull on the limited banner, you're pretty much only going to get 2 different A-rank characters, the 2 that are featured on the banner. Pulling on the standard banner will give you better odds of getting an A-rank character that is not one of the 2 featured on the limited banner. Now, full disclosure, there's only 2 A-rank characters that you won't get for free as part of the story, soon to be 3. So maybe do take this advice with a grain of salt. But still, I stand by it, if only for 1 character. Piper. If you are new to the game, and you want a character that is fun and easy to play and will absolutely clear content, Piper's your gal. But she is not given to you for free. If she is not on the limited banner when you start playing, your chances of pulling her there are very not good. A-ranks aren't rare, you will often get more than 1 when you do a 10 pull, but for the limited banner, any A-ranks you get are probably going to be the ones on the banner. Something to add to that. I think the worry about bricking your account in Zenless Zone Zero is stupid. I cannot imagine a set of characters that would make the game unplayable. And even if you assign stats at random, you could still, in time, fix them. I say that as someone who did not listen to the experienced gacha gamers. When ZZZ launched, a character I really wanted to play was Grace. I thought her combat style was fun, and so I committed a cardinal sin. The sin of spending my precious polychrome on the standard banner. I finally got Grace when I hit 300 pulls on the standard banner and I could just pick her. I accomplished that during the first week of the first update, 1.1. And that was right around when I started fully clearing Shiyu defense, so it clearly didn't break my account. I do not regret it. She is not a meta character, but I still enjoy playing her, and I have used her to help clear Deadly Assault bosses multiple times. That said, if you are a hard-headed fool like me, and decide to do the same, definitely don't spend any polychrome on the standard banner after that 300 freebie. That would be ridiculous. Confessing a lesser sin, I build pity regularly. If you don't know what that means, the odds of pulling an S-rank character increase as you get closer to the max of 90 pulls. Building pity refers to most of your early pulls when you're unlikely to pull an S-rank character. I totally understand if that description made your eyes glaze over or even made you angry. I was describing gambling mechanics. But what I'm really trying to say is, I pulled for A-ranks. I pretty much never save my pulls for a future character. If I can benefit one of my A-rank characters, I'm pulling now. I embrace immediate gratification. So to me, building pity was a great way to get mindscapes for my A-rank characters when they were on the limited banner. Technically, from my perspective, the whole building pity thing is really just a side effect. Speaking of pulling for A-ranks, low-spend players are often advised to avoid the weapon banner. I agree that this is a pretty good general rule. The reasons for that are, 1, an additional character generally helps your account more. A weapon benefits a single character, while a character may benefit multiple teams. 2, the weapon banner has its own separate pity tracker, so that's twice as much pity for you to work through if you're pulling on both banners. 3, something that is much more important to me since I've been playing for so long, once you max out a character's mindscape from pulling copies of them, any future copies give you enough store currency to buy a pull, essentially refunding a pull. Since you don't pull characters on the weapon banner, you will not get any refunds, and that can feel like lost pulls. That said, reason 3 doesn't really matter if you're still building your A-rank signature weapons, so you can definitely pull for A-rank weapons and not feel like you're wasting anything. And as you approach pity from those A-rank pulls, then it's not such a big deal if you then finish the banner off by grabbing an S-rank weapon every now and again. But over time, Reason 3 will become a factor, and if you're like me, you will really miss those refunds when you're pulling on the weapon banner. Okay, I think that pretty much covers pulls. How about I wrap up this section by talking about a couple more predatory mechanics that tag along with the gacha. How about dailies? How does Zenless Zone Zero handle the whole daily energy FOMO thing? I really hate when a video game gives me chores. I can't talk too much about other gacha games, so most of my experience comes from MMOs, but I suspect there's probably some overlap. So how have I put up with it for so many days in ZZZ? Now, what I would describe as chores is when a game makes me do a bunch of random tasks in a bunch of different places, all to get a currency that lets me do the thing I actually want to do. So let me share what chores are like in ZZZ by describing a typical day. I start my day in the backroom of Random Play, the video rental store your protagonist owns in-game. This is where I normally log off. I then walk to the front desk and talk to the Bangbu there, since opening the store is my first task. Technically, I guess my first task is collecting the resources that the store produced yesterday. But after that, to open the store today, I need to select a character to promote the store, and also select tapes for them to promote. I have been doing this for many days now, so I don't care about any of that fluff. I just select an S-rank character that has an element I'm currently leveling up, and I press X to autofill the videotapes. First chore done. Next, I exit Random Play, and then I walk across the street to get a scratch card from Hal's newsstand. The scratch card either gives me cash or a bit of polychrome. Second chore done. After that, I turn to the right and I take a short walk to the coffee shop. I then get a free coffee, which gives me energy. There are 2 coffees to choose from, but the first, which gives me 80 energy, is never the wrong answer. Third chore done. For my final chore, I need to spend my energy, so I fast travel to the HIA. There, I can spend my energy to get the resources I need to increase the stats of my characters. There are separate currencies for each stat, and each element, and each class, and I guess that is all a little annoying. But in ZZZ, they are all laid out in front of me together like a menu or a buffet, so it's a little less annoying. I just need to decide what I want. For each currency, I will fight some enemies, and each fight will probably take like 30 seconds, and I will do that 3 times. That is my final chore complete. My dailies are done. Now, in actuality, I will probably spend several additional minutes, more time than the dailies themselves, scrolling through my character list just trying to decide whose stats to increase today, and then what stats to increase. With regards to that, the devs have consistently been adding new features to make that decision process easier and nicer, so, we love the devs. Anyway, with any luck, maybe that whole description makes it clear why dailies in ZZZ don't bother me as much. Still, I think I can do better. For an even better explanation as to why I think it doesn't bother me, let's talk about dev design decisions again. Remember when I talked before about controlled scope and a la carte? If I didn't screw that up, you can probably identify those concepts yourself within the description I just gave. And now, I'm going to add one more concept to those, one that I'm calling context. The last thing that makes ZZZ's dailies bearable, if not a little pleasant, I like to call context. Here is a different description of my ZZZ dailies. I open the store, I grab a scratch card, I grab a coffee, and finally, I go to the gym and I warm up. Now, obviously, I skipped all the details that time, but I suspect you also noticed the big difference there at the end. That was not me being cheeky. That was not me being clever. That was me trying to accurately capture what my dailies feel like. Those quick little currency fights, directly linked to stat growth, I think it's pretty fair to call them a warm-up. So when I use context, I'm referring to how some bit of gameplay actually feels. When I describe other dailies as being chores, that is me using context to describe gameplay. So from my perspective, my context, Zenless Zone Zero does not have chores. It has a daily routine. It is simple, it is easy, it is fast, and I don't hate it. In a vacuum, ZZZ's dailies are the exact same system as many other gacha games. Limited energy, into currency, into stats. But in context. Alright, to finish up this gacha section, let us leave our good friend free-to-play behind. Let's talk about spending money. Hey, remember when I said I've never been tempted by monochrome? That's still true, but it's also not a coincidence that I specifically referenced monochrome, instead of saying something like, never felt pressured to spend money. Because if I had said that, it would have been a lie. While I do not think that Zenless Zone Zero is cutthroat or problematic, It doesn't ever start on the store page, it doesn't have flash sales, it doesn't constantly flag the store as having new items. I cannot say that it never pressures you to spend money. And that would be because of the Battle Pass. There's no getting around that. The basic design of a Battle Pass is to constantly show you two things, but only give one away for free, and it's always the smaller thing. It is FOMO incarnate. It is taunting, it is predatory. If you don't want to spend any money on ZZZ, the Battle Pass is probably really annoying for you. And if it drives you away from the game, that sucks. That said, if you do enjoy playing the game, and you are logging in frequently, and you want to hang around for the endgame, maybe buy the Battle Pass? Look, screw FOMO, that is a terrible reason to spend money. But here's a better one. Support the devs. I know, whales are literally shoveling money into their pockets, but still, even non-whales should support creators they like. Zenless Zone Zero is not made by a massive faceless corporation. It is merely owned by one. The game, all the little components that make it up, from the art, to the music, to the gameplay, to the animations, and hell, even the marketing. I mean, what? How have I not mentioned those? It almost feels wrong to call them marketing. The animation, the music, and the story that comes out of those is fantastic. They are literal art. If you are skipping the teasers, demos, and EPs, you are getting less Zenless Zone Zero. And here's a phrase I don't think I've ever uttered in my life. I bet their producers are pretty amazing. Seriously, think about that for a moment. Someone is helping connect all those developers, designers, artists, art styles, comics, animations, music, singers, and voice actors on schedule and without ruining the quality. That is an incredible feat. So yeah, if you enjoy the game and you can spare $10, there is no shame in supporting the devs. I think it's easy to say that you'll get $10 of value out of each patch the devs release. And also, I guess you get the Battle Pass too. And I guess I should also mention the 30-day pass thing. I mean, it's a better value than buying Monochrome. $5 for just shy of 20 pulls, it's not the worst deal. I bought it in 1.2 to help pull Bernice. I bought it in 1.4 because it was December and 'twas the season. And if Caesar reruns in 1.7, I'll probably buy it then too. You do you. I'm almost done, I promise. Let me hit one more issue before I start wrapping up, and let's make it a fun one. Is Zenless Zone Zero a Gooner game? Up front, let it be known that I am middle-aged. I cannot be 100% sure that I know what that means. So I'm going to rephrase that question into, is Zenless Zone Zero a game that is primarily focused on selling sexy bits to young men and women? And to that, I would say no. No, it is not. ZZZ has fan service. I'm not trying to gaslight anyone. ZZZ has fantastic fan service. But is it the main product? No, not even close. It's not even a major feature. It's present, the cutscene camera has been known to leer every now and again, and a lot of character animations use physics. But in the grand scope of things, across all of the content, if you're not actively seeking it out, blink and you can miss a lot of it. Now, the ZZZ community? Oh, they're a bunch of degenerates. All that slow down, zoom and enhance stuff, poor sniffing boo, cameras pointed permanently at the sky, all of that is 100% community generated. The community are a bunch of unapologetic pervs. The best thing I can say about them is that they're keeping a thriving industry of independent artists churning out fan art for all of the rest of us to share. But no, not a Gooner game. I mean, hell, have you seen what these other gachas are doing these days? They make ZZZ look downright wholesome. Finally, it's time to tie everything together and end this rant. I wasn't quite sure how to do that, but just a couple days ago, as of writing this anyway, I had a really good experience in-game, and so I thought, hey, a personal anecdote might be a novel way to reinforce some of what I've talked about. For posterity purposes, this happened during patch 1.6 on March 27th, 2025. So this was more than 2 weeks into the current patch, and having been playing the game every day for most of a year. Allow me to present just another day playing Zenless Zone Zero. I'm done with my dailies, and I've got a little extra time. The current event is a double disc drop, so there's nothing new to check out. I'm just chewing through existing content. Today, I figure I'm going to clear the 9 out of 12 modifier challenge of the new Lost Void difficulty in Hollow Zero. For my card, I take the 25% damage bonus, since I know I'm not going to stay at full health, and the 80% max health penalty it comes with isn't really going to affect me. I don't want to work that hard, so I choose one of my best teams, one that I feel confident won't struggle to clear the challenge. Bernice, Lucy, and Ben Bigger. For my starting gear, I gotta go with the first piece of the adversity set. Trading health for damage works great for this team, since none of the enemies have a chance of one-shotting Ben, and the Bangbu for that gear has a heal. Smooth run to the first boss, nothing really worth talking about. The first few enemies all start weakened because of other perks related to Lost Void, and even if I'm sloppy and take a few hits, it doesn't matter. The adversity gear is draining my health down to 20% anyway. First boss gives me a little grief. It's Pelikos, the new boss from Silver Soldier Anby's story. There's a really annoying teleporting enemy in the game called Thanatos, and when the devs like screwing with us, they'll make us fight a pair of them at the same time. Pelikos is a boss version of a pair of Thanatos. I bet some designer is really happy with themselves. Anyway, I think I remember resetting at least once when I screwed up and got Bernice killed. It's not a great fight for my team, since the last thing anyone wants to do when playing Ben is chase an enemy. If I did reset, I don't have any trouble clearing it the second time. Ben makes up for being slow during the boss's big shadow attack phases, since I can counter, or failing that, just eat, the big hits. The very first room on the next floor, just a normal combat encounter room, has me fighting a mini-boss version of a heavy striker. This is a fire-resistant robot that can repeatedly generate a shield. I also can't remember if this is true, but I think that it also ignores anomaly procs like burn until that shield breaks. I am running a mono fire team. Because of the difficulty modifiers, and the fire resistance, and maybe also me just not being good enough, I cannot do enough damage to break the shield, which is maybe also preventing burn. This is basically the worst enemy I could encounter in this entire run, including the floor bosses. I can still build up impact though, and when I do trigger stun, the shield drops and I can do damage. I think I reset once, but otherwise, with a dogged mix of counters, defense, and heals from my Bangbu, 3 stuns, and I don't know how long later I finally kill the enemy. If karma is a thing, I must have done something good, because in the very next room, a random event room, this is what I find. If you don't know, event rooms typically only have one event in them. I have never encountered this room before, and I feel compelled to take that screenshot so I can share it with a friend. I also decided that it might be interesting to talk about this run in the video I'm writing. I get a lot of power-ups in this room, but the one I'm happiest about is my first special map, which is a new mechanic they just added in 1.6, and that map will force the final floor to have multiple challenge rooms, which means I'll get even more power-ups. Nothing notable happens before I get to the next boss. It's Marionette, which is a sort of reskin version of the Ballet Twins. The ZZZ devs like to reuse enemies each patch, giving them a new coat of paint, but more importantly, giving them a completely new moveset, which always keeps things fresh. Anyway, this fight goes well. Marionette is aggressive and repeats a lot of attacks, which makes it very easy to stack up damage with Ben's counters. I use the challenge map in the break room after the boss and end up with 3 challenge rooms on the path to the final boss, which I'm pretty happy with. I actually fail the first challenge room by getting hit 3 times. That's no big deal, I just reset the room and clear it the second time. The next challenge room goes well, but the following room is a new type for 1.6, a how many waves of enemies can you clear in a minute type of room. This room type favors teams that are good at grouping and AoE damage, and I'm not running one of those teams. I do a good job of clearing the first wave, but the second spawns a circle of ranged enemies around me, and I'm not going to clear wave 2 in time. No big deal, it just means I get a single weak power-up. The third challenge room is a breeze, since it's one of the Boxer Elites. That enemy's combo punches just means more counters for Ben. On to the final boss. Going in, I'm a little wary about the new final boss, Geppetto. It's got a cool design, but it's not super aggressive, and it has a lot of charged up attacks. So I'm not going to be countering a lot of attacks back to back with Ben. That said, I have gotten a ton of power-ups on this run, and that means that Ben effectively has infinite health, as long as I don't screw up too much in a row, which I don't. I've completed the run, and the mode timer says it was just over 30 minutes, though I don't think that includes resets. In addition to the normal Lost Void rewards, I also get rewards for clearing with 9 modifiers for the first time, as well as some collection completion rewards for the map I found in that super event. Before I log out, I return to the random play and I do one quality time invite, this time with Anton. Anton wants me to take a picture in front of some cool graffiti in Lumina Square. Finally, I log out. Thus, ended my day playing Zenless Zone Zero. Now, I don't want you to think I was trying to highlight anything about me or my performance from that story. What I'm hoping is that it demonstrated some of the points I've tried to make in this video talking about this game that I am a huge fan of. That really was just another day playing Zenless Zone Zero. Thanks a lot for watching, especially if you've hung around this whole time. I still plan on making at least one more video, one about team building in ZZZ. I'm also going to rant about the characters and factions as part of that, so if any of that interests you, I guess subscribe. I'm not expecting to actually run a channel yet, this is my first video, but if this video got posted, I'm confident I'll get up the second. As one last thing, I want to give a shout out to the creators and channels that indirectly inspired this video by making quality ZZZ content. In no particular order, Kets, OK Muzzy, Kete the 7th, Average Luck Gamer, EOXS, Hako, Ashikai, Rakaruk, Azrael Vanity, Jay Shoea and Proxy Podcast, and Losing the 50. Thanks.